Chag Sameach, everybody. I'm really glad that we're able to stay connected during this Passover Seder. This is a different kind of Passover. We always ask, why is this night different from all other nights? And this year during Pesach, we're asking, why is this Seder different from all other Seders? I'm used to being with you in a room full in the social hall with lots of food and lots of people and kids running around. And I know that what you're doing probably in your homes is different from what you usually do for Pesach. But I'm very, very grateful that we're able to be together in this way, and that Rabbi Shifra and Rabbi Debbie and Cantor Elisa are joining us as we go through our Seder, our order of Passover. I also want to say thank you to Andy Yanowitz, who is our ever diligent and patient tech person, for helping us make all of this possible. So I hope that you will appreciate and participate in ways that you're able to for Pesach this year and enjoy the Seder with us.
And I'm grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for this community. And even though this is not the Passover that we thought we would have, we're grateful to be alive. So maybe we say a Shehechianu, a special Shehechianu after we light the candles, because we are grateful.
Yes, that's for sure.
So Pharaoh and Moses, thank you so much for being a part of this telemed conflict resolution session. Why do the two of you think you're here today?
You know, things have been pretty rough, honestly.
Moses, would you say that's really true?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's been rough, but it doesn't have to be rough anymore.
I just don't understand. You don't want to be my slaves anymore?
No, we do not.
Pharaoh, what does it feel like to hear Moshe say that he and his people don't want to be your slaves anymore?
You know, it really hurts. It feels like we've done some beautiful things together. I mean, we couldn't have built these pyramids if you weren't our slaves. And those pyramids wouldn't be a wonder of the world for years to come if it wasn't for what we've built together.
Yeah, but now it's time for us to go.
But I think there's so much more we could still do together. We could keep building wonders of the world. We could build a great wall or hanging gardens. We could build a great library. There's a site in Alexandria that I think would be perfect for a great library.
What you don't understand is that me and my people don't want to do those things. We want to go to our homeland, to the promised land.
Ugh, this homeland. Always with this homeland. You think life's going to be so much better in this magical homeland? Well, I don't.
It's got to be better than this.
Moses, what happens for you when Pharaoh disregards your wish to go to your homeland?
It's more what happens to him. God's going to keep plaguing him and his people, you know.
It's the worst. First, the waters turned to blood. Then there were frogs and locusts and so many other things. So many things.
And yet, you keep resisting what God's telling you, which is that our relationship is over.
Why do you keep resisting, Pharaoh?
My heart, it just feels hardened.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think I saw Moses' relatives, Jacob and Joseph, getting along so well with my dad, the previous Pharaoh, all those years. And honestly, I feel jealous. Like, why can't I have that with the Jews too?
And yet you have the exact opposite.
It's true.
Sometimes the best way to love someone is to let them go, Pharaoh.
This is your last chance. You saw what God just did to the firstborn.
So what will you do, Pharaoh? Will you let Moses and his people go?
Okay, fine, whatever. Fine. Okay, sure.
That didn't sound so very sure.
I'm sure, I'm sure. Just go, just go.
And you won't change your mind, really?
As of this moment, As of this moment, I can promise I won't change my mind.
Moses, what would happen if Pharaoh changes his mind again?
I don't know, but I don't think he wants to find out.
So, this concludes our counseling?
Well, I guess it does, if you think this is a real sea change for you, Pharaoh. Do you agree, Pharaoh, that this is a real sea change for you?
I believe it is.
Do you agree, Moses?
We'll see what happens to the sea.
Near the beginning of the Seder, early on, the youngest child, or whoever is willing and able, will ask the 4 questions. The question is introduced with the statement, how different this night is from all other nights. This year especially, this night is different from all other Seders that we have participated in. We're not with family and friends sitting around a large table, which for many of us is the custom, and we're not just participating in the same kind of spirit that we are accustomed to participating in. This night is different. This Seder is different. In the Torah, a month after we're required to bring the Passover offering to the temple, in Numbers 9:9, the Torah introduces us to something else. The Torah tells us of a second Passover, Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is for those who were impure and unable to participate in the first offering, sacrificial offering, that was prescribed on the day before the Seder. So this is interesting to us in our time, because the language that the Torah uses is anyone who had any impurities. We are social distancing. We are locked in our homes because we don't know if we have impurities, and we don't want to risk impurities being given to other people. So we're staying inside for our protection and for their protection. All of us are worthy of a Pesach Sheni. And if it's not in 30 days, then it might be in 60 days. It might be later. Whenever it is, this is a holiday of freedom. It is a holiday of release. And so whenever we are released from these restrictions that are keeping us inside, I hope all of us will celebrate a Pesach Sheni with great joy, with great happiness, and with gratefulness for all that we've endured, and that we are now truly free.
Kadesh Urchatz, Karpas Yachatz, Magid Rachtza, Motzi Matzah, Maror Korech, Shulchan Orech, Tzafun Barech, Hallel Nirtzah.
Did you learn that melody growing up?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love it. That's not the melody I usually use, and yours is so beautiful. So here we are. We're going to light the candles for Pesach, and the blessing is Ner Shel Yom Tov. And then Rabbi Shifra suggested that we also add a blessing of Shechianu, just because we are alive. As the blessing says, we are sustained and able to reach this moment. So here we are. And I'll light the candles, and I invite you to join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel yom tov. Blessed are you, Adonai, Sovereign of the universe, who makes us holy, and through your mitzvot, give us the blessing of lighting these festival lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. We are so grateful that we have reached this moment so that we can celebrate this special time. And we say together,
Amen.
Amen. So this is a song that's written by Bruce Coburn, and he's one of our favorite musicians. I'm speaking for myself, Rabbi Shifra, and others, especially in the Rock Shabbat band. And I heard this song, I think it's been about 2 years. It's been about 2 years. And I just was really moved by it. And some of you who've been to Rock Shabbat have heard it. So you'll have the words and you can join me. 40 years in the wilderness, getting to know the beasts, projected and reflected on the greatest and the least. 40 years of days and nights, angels hovering near, kept me moving forward, though the way was far from clear. And they said, take up your load, run south to the road, turn to the setting sun. Sun going down, got to cover some ground before everything comes undone. Take up your load, run south to the road, turn to the setting sun. Sun going down, got to cover some ground before everything comes undone, comes undone. 40 years in the wilderness, dancing with the flies, dazzled by the visions rolling out before my eyes. Angel made graffiti, demons in disguise. You could trade away your birthright for another day's supplies. Or you could take up your load, run south to the road, turn to the setting sun. Sun going down, got to cover some ground before everything comes undone. Take up your load, run south to the road, turn to the setting sun. Sun going down, got to cover some ground before everything comes undone, comes undone. Rising with the height of land, falling with the crowd. Spirits in the scouring wind call my name out loud. Said you could go to heaven, or you could go to hell, or you could hang out in between in the place you know so well. Or you could pick up your load, run south to the road, turn to the setting sun. Sun going down, got to cover some ground before everything comes undone. Take up your load, run south to the road, turn to the setting sun. Sun going down, got to cover some ground before everything comes undone, comes undone.
time for Kiddush.
Yes, Kiddush Rishon, first cup. So I wanted to share something with you from a new Haggadah that I had never seen before, and it's called The Promise of the Land, a Passover Haggadah, Rabbi Ellen Bernstein. And it's basically an environmental Haggadah. Rabbi Schiffer's holding it up so you can see it. And the way that Rabbi Ellen, she describes, she says, some Haggadot link the 4 cups to the 4 elements, earth, water, air, and fire. And this first cup is dedicated to earth, which is our physical home, and it recalls mountains, valleys, and diverse landscapes, reminding us of the preciousness of soil. Earth is our refuge, our habitat, and the source of our sustenance. So I am going to pour the first cup of Manischewitz. Now I wanted to mention to people that, you know, when we make a blessing over grape juice or wine, it has to be grape juice. That oftentimes people would get loganberry or other kinds of berries, but Brei Pri Hagafen is what we say over the blessing for Brei Pri Hagafen is what we say over just grapes. So as it is a tradition to celebrate a sense of freedom, I didn't bring my special pillow, but we tend to, when we drink the cups of wine, is we tend to recline. So I'll ask Rabbi Schiffer to join me as we chant the first blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol am, v'romemanu mikol lashon, v'kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. Vatiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava, moadim l'simcha, chagim uzmanim l'sason, et yom chag hamatzot hazeh, zeman chirutenu, mikra kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'charta, Ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, u'moadei kodshecha b'simcha u'satzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim.
Hayam. So the first hand washing is a hand washing for whoever is leading the Seder, and I thought I would share this beautiful intention, this kavanah that's written by a woman named Trish Arlen. And I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to wash my hands. And we don't do the blessing at this particular hand washing. We do it before we start to eat. So there's 2 hand washings, although, you know, the joke going around all over the internet is that there's like 1 million hand washings for this particular Seder, because many of us probably don't even have any skin left on our hands, given how many times we've been sanitizing and washing them. So, Orchatz. As we wash our hands, we pray, blessed is the soul of the universe, breathing us in and breathing us out. May our breaths continue, and our health and the health of all be preserved. In this time of sickness and fear of sickness, holy wholeness, we take as much responsibility for this as we can by observing the obligation to wash our hands thoroughly for as long as it takes to say this prayer. Karpas blessing. I'm going to talk about where your Karpas is from.
Well, ours is from our garden. Peter grew it. And this is always the first taste of food is always special. It's something that people are really looking forward to, and it represents the promise of spring. So, you know, we're hoping that with spring, there will be new life.
Beautiful. So why don't we have salt water here?
So I'll take the parsley and dip it in the salt water and say the bracha, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri ha'adama.
Amen. Do you want to talk about your incredible matzah cover that you have for the 3 matzot?
Well, I do. So this matzah cover was made by my great-grandmother for my grandmother, and it is a precious family heirloom in my family. It was made in Yerushalayim, and it says here Yerushalayim, and as some of you know, my grandmother was born in Yerushalayim, and her family goes back in Yerushalayim for many generations, for hundreds of years. So I've had family living in Jerusalem for at least 250 years that I know of. And it says on this cover, Lechavod Chag HaMatzot, in honor of the holiday of the Matzah, which is of course Pesach, Yerushalayim. And then it says Shanat Tav Reish Tzadi Gimel, which I believe is 1932. So this was made for my grandparents' wedding by my great-grandmother and handed down to me from my mother. And then you may know that a lot of the matzah covers have these 3 pockets inside, one for Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael, one for each of the 3 matzahs for Passover.
So I'm going to read a poem by Tricia Arlen about the 3 matzot, about the 3 different matzahs. The top matzah and bottom matzah are, it is said, Pesach substitutes for the 2 loaves of challah on Shabbat, supposedly a reminder of the 2 portions of manna they received in the desert every Friday before Shabbat. But the middle matzah, that's for the Seder. We break it in half and call it the bread of affliction, just like the unleavened bread we ate as we fled slavery. Matzah number 2, the afflicted matzah. We break it in half and separate ourselves from joy, so we don't forget the pain that has been ours. We break it in half and separate ourselves from the joy so we can remember the pain of others. All this pain lives in this first half of the afflicted matzah, and we eat this half now so that we do not forget that we were slaves, so that we do not enslave others. But we separate the second half of the afflicted matzah, the afikomen, from all that hurt, so that we don't forget the joy that can sometimes follow the sorrow, so that we don't forget the times that we changed things for the better. And after the meal, we search for that happiness, and we will find it. And then we eat the afikomen, so we don't forget that it is good to be alive, and we are obligated to share that joy. Blessed oneness, we are so grateful for the obligations to remember pain and share joy. And we say together,
Amen.
Amen. That's where I learned.
So now I'm breaking the middle matzah, and half of it will be remaining for the afikomen, and half of it will, and she's got her afikomen.
I have an afikomen scarf that's from India that was made by some indigenous women in a beautiful area of India, northern India. That was a gift, and so that's what I'm wrapping our afikomen in.
Good. And then I'm going to hold up the matzah and recite Lachma Anya. Lachma Anya diachalu avhatana biara biara dimitzrayim biara biara dimitzrayim kol dichvin Hashata Hacha Lishana Haba Be'Yisrael Hashata Havdei Lishana Haba B'nei Chorim.
Beautiful.
It's time for the Nishtanah. I'd like to invite up Eli Mitchell to sing Nishtanah for us with his mother, Jess.
Nishtanah Hawaii Baze Miko Hawaii Bo Miko Hawaii Bo Miko Hawaii Bo
Shavuot Halelot Anu Ochim Chametz U'Matzah Chametz U'Matzah Halayla hazeh Kulo Matzah Halayla hazeh Kulo Matzah Shavuot Halelot Anu Ochim She'ayirakot Halayla hazeh Maror Halayla hazeh Maror Shavuot Halelot Ein anu matfilim Afilu pa'am echad Halayla hazeh Shetefet amin Halayla hazeh Shetefet amin Shavuot Halelot Anu Ochim Ben Yoshvin u'ben Mesubim Halayla hazeh Kulanu Mesubim. High five.
Let's see what
Avadim Hayinu. We were slaves and now we are free. And I always want to remind us all that not all of us are free. And that the hope is that while we are not enslaved ourselves personally, physically in Mitzrayim, there are still people all over who are slaves, as we know, in our midst, people who are trafficked, even in our communities, and that we don't finish the work of redemption until we feel that we have made progress in redemption for all.
Avadim Hayinu Ata b'nei chorim Banot chorim Avadim Hayinu Ata b'nei chorim Avadim Hayinu Avadim Hayinu Ata b'nei chori b'not chori Avadim Hayinu Ata b'nei chori Avadim Hayinu Ata b'nei chori b'not chori Avadim Hayinu Avadim Hayinu
So this is The Four Children Approach the Future by Ariel Cates. So first of all, the four children appear in the Jerusalem Talmud, where Rabbi Chia, a student of Rabbi Judah the Prince, is quoted as bringing this parable. Rabbi Chia's text varies quite a bit from the text we know today. For one, the simple child is not simple, but stupid. But it is rabbis at the time of the collection of the Mishnah and Talmud who are creating this rubric, and so we proceed.
The wise child asks about the rules and commandments that govern the Seder and receives a full explanation of the details. This child looks to the future with the rules in mind, seeking structures and understanding that life necessitates systems. Looking toward the future, this child is savvy. What can I do within the structures I'm given, they might ask. In what ways do we search our surroundings for external rules that help us to structure our lives? How does this help? And how does this hurt? Do you look for structures, for open spaces, sometimes one or the other?
The wicked child asks their interlocutor what Passover means to them. This is a separation that incurs wrath, and the statement that this child would not have been among those saved because of a lack of collective self-identity. But are they looking for a more personal explanation of how to connect individually with what's going on and how to proceed? Taking in information from others' experiences in order to shape their own? This child might have done some self-education to ask a more targeted question, which might not have produced the same kind of wrath. Perhaps we can ask each other, what does it mean to you to experience the Seder as though you were personally liberated from Egypt? This child looks to the future perhaps with good boundaries and a different understanding of self. And what do we gain by othering this person who is a child in our midst? Do we really get to be arbiters of who would have been saved and who would not?
The simple child looks to the future totally baffled. What does this all mean? What the heck is going on? This child has an open demeanor. There's not a lot of ego here, and it's clear from what's being asked, which isn't actually that different from the wicked child. The only difference is the absence of the to you. But it's met with a much more tolerant kind of inclusion. By implying that we're all in this together, this child is given help understanding what's going on, approaching their communities with humility. Still, like the wicked child, their question doesn't show the deeper knowledge that would indicate self-education. This child is looking to the bigger picture, unlike the wise child who's looking for the micro level of life.
The child who does not know how to ask is present but silent, looking to the future with a kind of carelessness, perhaps, or alternately with paralysis. The thing about silence is that you can't always tell which is which. The rabbis use, "This is because of what God did for me here." It's the same othering and dividing language as we saw with the wicked child who doesn't get to be included in our collective. Not super merciful. What would have happened if the rabbis had asked this child a question? How do we embrace our ignorance with humility when we don't know how to ask? That's a lesson from the simple child, perhaps. Have there been times when we've assumed ignorance from someone's silence? The way I tend to look at the 4 children is that there are parts of them in each and every one of us. And I think the questions that are raised in this particular piece can inspire us to really think a little bit more about our own selves and about our children, which is what the Seder is all about, asking questions and having conversations.
I really like this depiction in the Haggadah called A Different Night of the 4 children representing all 4 children as books. And this was done by my friend David Wander, who actually was a student of mine when I was in rabbinical school. He was an artist who came to learn biblical Hebrew in my class. So this is an expression of what each of the 4 children is like. And so this is the Chacham, this is the wise child. And the wise child is a book with words on it. And it's a Siddur, it's a page of Torah. And then the wicked child is a book on fire. And this is a child who is not only rejecting what they got from Judaism, but is angry at Judaism and blaming and alienated. And I have to say that as a Jewish educator, and I think any Jewish educator would say this, that there are a certain percentage of students that come to class and they are angry. They're angry that they're there. They're angry that they're not out playing basketball or having fun. They're angry because they didn't choose to be Jewish and they feel like their parents are forcing them. Or they're angry for any number of reasons, and Judaism is the great foil for them to project their anger. And also, there have been, and I've encountered many people like this, who have actually been hurt by religion, who have been hurt by Judaism. And we know that GLBT folks in the Jewish community have been hurt by old ideas about gender roles, and
Jews of color
have
been
felt
rejected
and alienated. So this is the alienated student or child. And then this one, the blank book, is the simple child. This is the child that's open, but really is coming from no place, having not practiced Judaism at home, having not experienced really anything, but is open. And we have a lot of students like that who don't know Aleph. They've never celebrated Shabbat, and yet they're here at the temple. And then this is the child that doesn't know how to ask, the closed book. That not only, this child's not open, not only do you have to teach this child about Judaism, but before you teach them, you have to figure out where's the key that opens them, how to get that, even the openness to want to know what Judaism is. And so I love this depiction by David Wander.
Yeshkoch, it's very nice. Thank you. So we're going to sing again, Let My People Go. And I know a lot of you already know this song, so let's do it together as we remember that our primary story of liberation continues to be a story that many people draw upon to find hope and faith and to bring together the strength to keep going.
1, 2, 3.
When Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Thus saith the Lord, what Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll strike your firstborn dead, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go.
So this is the section of the narrative, the Magid, Lahagid, like the word Haggadah comes from that word. And I'm going to read for you the Exodus, a story in 7 short chapters that is in the Haggadah that was put together by the Velveteen Rabbi, Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt. Chapter 1. Once upon a time, our people went into Galut, exile, in the land of Egypt. During a famine, our ancestor Jacob and his family fled to Egypt where food was plentiful. His son Joseph had risen to high position in Pharaoh's court. Chapter 2. Generations passed and our people remained in Egypt. In time, a new Pharaoh ascended to the throne and ordered our people enslaved. In fear of rebellion, Pharaoh decreed that all Hebrew boy children be killed. 2 midwives named Shiphrah, there she is, and Puah defied his orders, claiming that the Hebrew women are so hardy they give birth before we arrive. Oh, right.
And I like how people sometimes call it Shifra and Pula.
Pula? Oh, there we go. Shiphrah and Puah, Shiphrah and Paula. But how many of us have had like births where we couldn't have the midwives arrive because it was so fast? But in any case, through their courage, a boy survived. Midrash tells us he was radiant with light. Fearing for his safety, his family placed him in a basket and he floated down the Nile, and he was found and adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, who named him Moshe, because min hamayim mishitihu, from the water she drew him forth. And she hired his mother Yocheved as his wet nurse. Thus he survived to adulthood and was raised as Prince of Egypt. Although a child of privilege, as he grew, he became aware of the slaves who worked in the brickyards of his father, and when he saw an overseer mistreat a slave, he struck the overseer and killed him. Fearing retribution, he set out across the Sinai alone. God spoke to him from a burning bush, which though it flamed was not consumed. The voice called him to lead the Hebrew people to freedom. Moses argued with God, pleading inadequacy, but God disagreed. Sometimes our responsibilities choose us. Chapter 4. Moses returned to Egypt and went to Pharaoh to argue the injustice of slavery. He gave Pharaoh a mandate which resounds through history: let my people go. Pharaoh refused, and Moses warned him that mighty God would strike the Egyptian people. These threats were not idle. 10 terrible plagues were unleashed upon the Egyptians. Only when his nation lay in ruins did Pharaoh agree to our liberation. Chapter 5. Fearful that Pharaoh would change his mind, our people fled, not waiting for the bread dough to rise. Our people did not leave Egypt alone. A mixed multitude went with them. From this we learn that liberation is not for us alone, but for all the nations of the earth. Even Pharaoh's daughter came with us and traded her old title, Bat Paro, daughter of Pharaoh, for the name Batya, daughter of God. Pharaoh's army followed us to the Sea of Reeds. We plunged into the waters. Only when we had gone as far as we could did the waters part for us. We mourn even now the Pharaoh's army drowned. Our liberation is bittersweet because people died in our pursuit. To this day we relive our liberation that we may not become complacent, that we may always rejoice in our freedom. I'm going to sing a song about the Righteous Midwives, and it always reminds me of being at a conference for rabbis in Atlanta and being at the Ebenezer Baptist Church on a civil rights tour, and the preacher there from St. Louis told a story with 300 people or so in the sanctuary about the midwives, and she asked us who was going to step in and be the midwives. And it was so powerful to hear an African-American preacher sharing our story in a time that we so much need to step up and step in. Midwife is a woman who helps a mother to give birth. This is the story of the brave midwives who knew what life was worth. Pharaoh gave them an order with a wicked look in his eye. You may spare the Hebrew daughters, but the Hebrew sons must die. Shiphrah and Puah, the righteous midwives, they saved the children's lives. Shiphrah and Puah, the righteous midwives, they saved the children's lives. The midwives were courageous. Pharaoh's order was ignored. They knew that it was dangerous, but they trusted in God. Were it not for Shiphrah and Puah, many children would have died. Pharaoh could not destroy us, even though we know he tried. Shiphrah and Puah, the righteous midwives, they saved the children's lives. Shiphrah and Puah, the righteous midwives, they saved the children's lives.
When I think about the plagues now, I think about the plague that we're facing. We are really facing a plague right now. And it's not only this plague. There have been many plagues. There have been species becoming extinct. There have been fires wiping out huge areas that are inhabited by people and by animals, and there's been so much loss.
Flooding, people losing their homes to flooding. I mean, it goes on and on and on, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we're living in a time where the plagues really are becoming much more real for us. Now, I think we lived through a golden time in our lifetimes where we could just take from the earth and not see the consequences. And now I think we're seeing the consequences. So the plagues maybe remind us that our ecology is fragile and that we can't just consume wantonly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think that what we're trying to do is to have the kind of compassion that we need to have for each other in this moment where we're all feeling vulnerable to the plagues. I mean, I think it's not, oftentimes when there are plagues, some populations are more vulnerable, and still in this moment, some populations are more vulnerable. People who are incarcerated are more vulnerable right now to what's going on. People who are unhoused are more vulnerable to this plague. So it is important for us to remember, while I can sit home in my house and distance from people, there are many people who can't even do that. So the plague definitely is hitting people in different ways, as most plagues do.
And the Torah actually highlights that, because the first plagues really didn't hit the palace.
Right.
It wasn't until the very end that Pharaoh realized that his disastrous path was actually going to be to even penetrate the palace walls.
Well, and I think it's also related to the hardened heart question, right? Of a time when, we harden our own hearts, and then we get to the place where our hearts are so hard that we can't even understand or feel the vulnerability of other people, just like Pharaoh. And it takes the shaking up for us to open our hearts, and it's so painful. It's just so painful to crack through that piece. And more than ever, it is really understandable to see why we diminish our cup this year. I feel like our cups are really diminished as we think about what we're all experiencing and what we have been experiencing, like you said, Rabbi Shifra, in terms of ecological disorder. And so my prayer is that as we remove these drops, we can further our commitment to really feeling the pain and having the pain cause us to take action together.
Amen.
Dam, blood. Svardea, frogs. Kinim, lice. Ahov, insect swarms. Dever, cattle plague. Shechin, boils. Barad, hail. Arbe, locusts. Choshech, darkness. Makat bechorot, death of the firstborn. May we continue to feel and to act and to try to avert any future plagues. And we say together,
Amen.
Amen. So here's a contemporary Dayenu. If you, the author for this is unknown, but I'm going to read it and you can say Dayenu. When all workers of the world receive just compensation and respect for their labors, enjoy safe, healthy, and secure working conditions, and can take pride in their work, Dayenu. When governments end the escalating production of devastating weapons, secure in the knowledge that they will not be necessary, Dayenu. When technology is for the production and conservation of energy and our other natural resources developed so that we can maintain responsible and comfortable lifestyles and still assure a safe environment for our children, Dayenu. When the air, water, fellow creatures, and beautiful world are protected for the benefit and enjoyment of all, Dayenu. When all politicians work honestly for the good of all, Dayenu. When all women and men are allowed to make their own decisions on matters regarding their own bodies and their personal relationships without discrimination or legal consequences, Dayenu. When people of all ages, sexes, races, religions, cultures, and nations respect and appreciate one another, Dayenu. When our children grow up in freedom, without hunger, and with the love and support they need to realize their full potential, Dayenu. When all people have access to the information and care they need for their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, Dayenu. When no elderly person in our society has to fear hunger, cold, or loneliness, Dayenu. When people everywhere have the opportunities we have to celebrate our culture and use it as a basis for progressive change in the world, Dayenu. Ilu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, hotzianu mi Mitzrayim, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et Torah, natan lanu et Torah, Dayenu. Everybody, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et Shabbat, natan lanu et Shabbat, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu.
At this point in the Seder, it's traditional to chant Psalm 114. Lecha Hayam,
Lecha Hayam,
Kitanus,
Kitanus,
Hayarden, Tisov Lechor,
Tisov Leachor,
Heharim,
Heharim,
Tirkeduchelim,
Tirkeduchelim,
Givao,
Givao,
Kivnetzon,
Kivnetzon,
Milifne Adon,
Milifne Adon,
Chuli Aretz,
Kuli Aretz,
Milifne,
Milifne,
Elohai Yaakov,
Elohai Yaakov,
Hahofri Hatzor,
Ahofri Atzor,
Agamayim,
Agamayim,
Chalamish,
Halamish,
Lemaiноmayim.
Lemaiноmayim.
It's time to explain the items on the Seder plate. Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. So the Paschal lamb, the Pesach, it represents the lamb that was sacrificed and the blood was put over the doorpost. Now, my grandfather, who was an Orthodox rabbi, taught that his teacher, Rav Kook, said that it's acceptable to use a beet. So because a beet kind of looks like blood, I mean, when you can see it looks like it bleeds, that it is represents the blood put on the mantle of the doorpost when the angel of death passed over the houses of the Israelites.
And Rav Kook was he was the first chief rabbi of Israel before Israel was even a state, right? So
Yes.
he was really a very important rabbi.
And in fact, he was a vegetarian.
Yay.
Yeah. Okay, and then matzah, I showed the matzah before, and probably everyone knows the story that the Israelites were not prepared to leave Egypt. And so even though they had been told that they were going to leave, they really didn't believe it. So they had their bread rising, and when it was time to leave, they took their bread with them. They threw it on their backs, and the hot sun baked it into matzah. And so maror is the bitter herb. It's the horseradish. And Rabbi Paula has Bubby's maror here. It's like a little commercial for Bubby's maror. It's the bitter herb, and it symbolizes the bitterness of slavery and bitterness in life.
And you made charoset.
I did. I made charoset, and of course apples and nuts, and then a little bit of grape juice or wine. And most people use walnuts, but you can use any nuts, and some people put raisins, and some people put dried apricots
I
in
do
it.
dates and oranges too.
Yeah.
Sephardic. And
it's supposed to look like the mortar from the bricks. And actually, when I was in Egypt, we saw that people still make bricks out of mud and straw there, just like adobe in Mexico. And so it really does look like that. And then we did talk already about the sprig of parsley, which represents the Karpas represents the spring, the first growth of spring. And then the egg, which is traditional to have on a Seder plate, represents the circle of life, this rebirth and the circle of life. And in fact, this tradition of eating a meal and holding up different things comes from the Roman Symposium, because as you may realize that the Jews were under Rome during this time when the Passover was established. So there was a tradition of a Roman symposium where the rich nobles would lie on couches and intellectualize about philosophy, and they would hold up different foods and say, this egg symbolizes the rebirth of spring. And that's where we got the lying on pillows too, from the Roman Symposium. And also they drank wine.
Right. Reclining.
Right.
So we have a number of different things on this Seder plate. It's very crowded. I think there's almost as many, where there have been many jokes that have said that now we need to make bigger Seder plates. But I should also say, since Rabbi Schiffer's been sharing about where her matzah cover came from, this Seder plate was a gift from beloved friends for Ari and I when we were married. And so it also has really special meaning for me. But so many of you already know the orange on the Seder plate, and because Jews like to argue, there's different stories about it. One is that Susanna Heschel, who's the daughter of Abraham Joshua Heschel, may his memory be for a blessing, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, she was at a Seder and she saw that people were putting a crust of bread on a Seder plate to symbolize lesbian LGBTQ inclusion. And she said, instead of doing that, let's put an orange on the Seder plate. And then there's another story that people argued to say that it was more about women's role in being included as rabbis in Jewish tradition. That's why we put an orange on the Seder plate. So I'll let you do your own research and see what you come up with, because every year we tend to have a little discussion about it. A number of years ago, and I haven't been shopping. A number of years ago, Trua, the rabbinic call for human rights, started to put a tomato on the Seder plate, and I don't have a fresh tomato, so I have a can of tomato paste, because that is a way of remembering all of the people who pick our food, who, especially in Immokalee, Florida, where most of our tomatoes come from, and the fair food fight. So if you want to learn more about the tomato on the Seder plate, you could even Google tomato rabbis, because rabbis have been going to Immokalee, Florida to advocate for those workers. And then we have branches of the olive tree that are actually taken from my olive tree in my front yard to symbolize peace in the Middle East. And a few years ago, we started putting free trade chocolate on our Seder plates to symbolize the slave labor, child labor that's used to harvest cocoa. And so what we want to make a commitment to buying only fair trade chocolate, which is just so important. And then last year, the newest item that I started seeing that people were putting on the Seder plates was shoelaces, because when immigrants were being put into camps, detention camps, which they are still in, their shoelaces were being taken away from them. And so I think that's an important reminder as well. And then I just decided, with Rabbi Schiffer's support, that we wanted to put a glove on the Seder plate to hold in our hearts all of our health workers, our doctors, our nursing assistants, all the people that are cleaning the rooms, all of the people that are doing so much work to try to keep us safe and to take care of our loved ones and even those we don't know who are in need of support. So today, I decided that we needed to add a glove to the Seder plate. And again, you might need to buy a bigger Seder plate. The rabbis teach that the reason that we have the Seder plate, and this is in the Talmud, is that it's there for the sake of education, l'shem chinuch, because the Seder is all about asking questions. And so when we put these symbols there, they're meant to stimulate conversation and questions. So I want to invite you to do that in your own home as well. So this is the second cup, and in the Haggadah that we have been drawing from, Promise of the Land, the second cup is dedicated to water, the circulatory system of our bodies and the circulatory system of the earth. Water reminds us of the Red Sea, the rivers, and the rain. In Hebrew, the word for pool and blessing share the same root letters, bracha. Water is the source of blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. L'chaim, l'chaim. Now here's the real hand washing, the Rachtza. And we're each supposed to do that. And I know many of us have been washing our hands, as I said, a lot. And I read this sweet little piece that says that when we're washing our hands now, we can, instead of reciting happy birthday or something like that, we can sing a chorus of Dayenu. So there you go. So this is the time when we're actually going to say the blessing for washing hands. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al nitilat yadayim.
Amen. So this is when we lift all three matzot and we say the blessings, and then you break the middle matzah, which is already broken, into a piece for everybody, and you also break a piece from the top matzah, and they eat it together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. And now you eat from the top and the middle matzah while reclining on your pillow.
Unless you eat gluten-free matzah like me. Maror.
Yeah, it's time to eat from the bitter herbs. And so some people eat the maror on matzah, and some people eat the maror with charoset on matzah. And so usually people take the bottom matzah for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the charoset too.
Mm-hmm.
So am I doing that?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to eat this delicious charoset. So we know that when we join together the maror and the charoset, we're making what's called a hillel sandwich. And in a sense, what we're doing is we're combining the sweetness and the bitterness, which is really what life is all about. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror. And now it's time to eat your meal.
So enjoy your Passover meal, everyone. And for those of you who got the Passover meal from Benjamin, we want to say especially that we know that for people who cater or who work in many, many different trades, that it's difficult for them to find work right now. And that Benjamin, we we love you, and we hope that everyone who works normally in places that are closed now, that you make it through this difficult time.
And we also want to thank Jen Vered, because it was her idea, and she also has offered to deliver some of those meals, so we really are so grateful to Jen as well. While we're eating dinner, most of the children will be going to look for the afikomen, right? Isn't that what usually happens?
Yeah.
They finish dinner before we do, and they're off looking around. I understand that the Jewish Museum of Maryland is going to be doing a virtual search for the afikomen. So you might, it's not available at this time, but maybe by the time your Seder happens, you could look for it and find it online if you want to try and do that. Yeah? And then the spiritual message of what's hidden is always something that I encourage us all to think about. What are the parts of ourselves that we have trouble recovering or uncovering? And that this safun, that's the section of the looking for the afikomen, is the word safun means hidden, and how are the ways that we might be able to be more vulnerable and uncover those parts within ourselves.
Now that reminds me of how we are really hidden from each other right now, because we can't meet as a community. We don't see right now the people who are watching this. And I think our challenge for this time is how to reveal ourselves in a way that we still feel connected, even though we're hidden from each other.
Amen, amen. Very, very important.
בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות, חייב אדם לראות את עצמו, כאילו הוא יצא, כאילו הוא יצא, כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים. בכל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות, חייב אדם לראות את עצמו, כאילו הוא יצא, כאילו הוא יצא, כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים. כל דור ודור חייב אדם לראות, חייב אדם לראות את עצמו, כאילו הוא יצא, כאילו הוא יצא, כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים.
Birkat Hamazon. So there's a long version of the Birkat Hamazon. There's a middle version of the Birkat Hamazon. Many of you, if you have a Haggadah at home, you'll find it. And there's a shorter version that I like to sing, that Rabbi Shifra also likes to sing. And I think we'll sing it now. Brich Rachamana Malka de Alma Mare de Hai Pita. Brich Rachamana Maka de Alma, Mare de Hai Pita. You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessings flow through us. You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessings flow through us. Richamana makate alma, mare de hai pita.
You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessings flow through us.
You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessings flow through us. You are the source of life for all that is, and your blessings flow through us. The third cup is dedicated to the air. This cup calls to mind Ruach Elohim, the wind of God, hovering over creation, and the breath of life that God breathed into Adam's nostrils. It is a poignant reminder of the continuity of our breath, the air, and the weather. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Lecha Hayam.
Miriam the prophet, sister of Aaron, took her timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed after her with drumming and dancing.
Now it's time to open the doors of our homes for Elijah the prophet. And that feels especially poignant to me when we're all closed in our own homes. We've really shut the doors. And this time we open the door, symbolizing that Elijah the prophet might come in. And who is Elijah? Elijah is the one who heralds the coming of the Messiah. He's the one who's supposed to announce that this is the time when the world will be as it could be, when people will rise to their potential, and the world will be at peace, and all the food will be distributed, and there will be enough for everyone. And we look forward to that time, and as Chana Senish said, I believe with a full heart in the coming of the Mashiach. I believe that it's coming. And so we sing for the Messiah to come. We sing for Elijah the prophet to come. But also Elijah is known to, in Jewish legends, especially Hasidic legends, to go from home to home dressed as a beggar, symbolizing that the people that were the most afraid of, or that we shun the most, any one of them could be the one that brings this change.
And we know that we keep a cup of wine. The 5th cup of wine is for Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Ha Navi. And a tradition has been embraced for quite some time now to have a cup of water for Miriam Ha Navi, which Rabbi Schiffer just pointed to, which is a reminder of the well that nourished the people in the wilderness, that Miriam's well, which the rabbis teach was created at the beginning of the world, before even physical creation came into being. Miriam's well was present.
And in my home, we add to Elijah's cup from our cups, symbolizing that if the Messianic time is going to come, it's going to be because everyone contributes. So I will contribute to Elijah's cup.
Eliyahu Ha Navi, Eliyahu Ha Tishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Ha Giladi, Bimera v'yamenu, Yavo Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David, Miriam Ha Neviah, Oz bezimra beyada, Miriam tirkod itanu letaken. Dayenu letaken et haolam bimera v'yamenu ki tevi'enu el mei ha-Yeshua el mei ha-Yeshua. Close the door. We come to the conclusion of our Seder, and there will be some beautiful music also to follow, provided by Cantor Elisa Feynman. And now we're at the Nirtzah, which is the conclusion of our Seder. The 4th cup is dedicated to fire. Fire is the energy of the world and also the destroyer. Fire calls to mind the burning bush, the lightning at Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, and the chariot of God. Fire is the element of the sun, of light, calling all things to emerge. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen l'chaim. We close with the ritual pronouncement. Next year in Jerusalem, in a wordplay on Jerusalem, some rabbis suggest that Yeru refers to awe, Yira, Yeru, while Shalem, like Shalom, refers to wholeness and peace. We pray that Jerusalem, the spiritual center for 3 great traditions, experience the peace that its name promises. We pray that all people everywhere stand in awe of the heavens and the earth and know the peace that comes from living lives of wonder. In the year to come, let us dedicate ourselves to making our cities wholesome cities, cities of peace. And let's say together, Lishana Haba B'Yerushalayim. Next year in Jerusalem, next year in awe and peace.
Echad אני יודע, Echad אני יודע, Echad Eloheinu, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, שניים מי יודע, שניים אני יודע, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, שלושה מי יודע, שלושה אני יודע, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, ארבע מי יודע, ארבע אני יודע, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, חמישה מי יודע, חמישה אני יודע, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, שישה מי יודע, שישה אני יודע, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, שבעה מי יודע, שבעה אני יודע, שבעה שבטיה, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, שמונה מי יודע, שמונה אני יודע, שמונה ימי מילה, שבעה ימי שבת, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, תשעה מי יודע, תשעה אני יודע, תשעה ירחי לידה, שמונה ימי מילה, שבעה שבטיה, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ, עשרה מי יודע, עשרה אני יודע, עשרה דביה, תשעה ירחי לידה, שמונה ימי מילה, שבעה ימי שבת, שישה סדרי משנה, חמישה חומשי תורה, ארבע אמהות, שלושה אבות, שני לוחות הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 יודע, 11 אני יודע, 11 כפיה, 10 דבריה, 9 ירחה לידה, 8 ימי מילה, 7 ימי שבתא, 6 סדרי משנה, 5 עובד 4 אמהות, 3 אבות, 2 אלו בוא אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ 12 מי יודע, 12 אני יודע, 12 שבתיה, 11 יומיה, 10 דבריה, 9 ירחה לידה, 8 ימי מילה, 7 ימי שבתא, 6 סדרי משנה, 5 עובדי תורה, 4 אמהות, 3 אבות, 2 אלו עובד, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ 13 מי יודע, 13 אני יודע, 13 מדיה, 12 שבתיה, 11 כפיה, 10 דבריה, 9 ירחה לידה, 8 ימי מילה, 7 ימי שבתא, 6 סדרי משנה, 5 עובדי תורה, 4 אמהות, 3 אבות, 2 אלו בוא הברית, אחד אלוהינו, 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 שבשמיים ובארץ.
Israel was in Egypt land. Let my people go. Pressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
Thus spoke the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn